Good evening. Welcome to the annual winter concert. This year it's actually a winter concert. Over the past few years we have not had a winter quite like this. How are you? You ready to sing? Okay. So, a couple of things. I just wanted to do a quick, what we call the state of the school. I just wanted to talk about a few things. Since I have you all here, I'm excited about actually sharing some of the great things that are happening here at the school. So, it's always great to have pictures of kids. That way you don't be staring at me, but stare right up there. This is obviously here. Our creative middle school kids put the bobcat with the basketball nose. So within Franklin Northeast Supervisory Union, they have what is called the Portrait of a Learner. And a Portrait of a Learner has a handful of different competencies: information savvy, creative thinkers, contributors, emotionally intelligent, trustworthy, financially literate, independent decision makers. And when I think about the information savvy, I just put a couple of things up there so you could see it. It's about communicating effectively. I can't imagine there's somebody in here that would not want their child to be a good communicator, okay? Analyze literature. On the bottom left, right here, we received a $25,000 present back in August to be used this year. Part of that present is that our students are getting books every single month. You guys have already gotten, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 different books. Now we're getting, this upcoming month we'll have even more. It also allows us to have authors come in. It also allows us to do possibly field trips. There's lots of different things that we can do with that $25,000. Creative thinkers. Nothing says creative thinker like a middle schooler writing on their hands, but that's what middle school kids have always done. On the right, we have these 3D printers that are making these STEM machines, these STEM cars. And here are 4 boys that are just loving doing that. And I hear them in there banging on the tables all the time when they have that class. And I know that this is the class that they're in. Contributors. When we think about that, we think about giving to our community. This past Christmas and Easter or Thanksgiving time, we were able to give back to the community. We had 9 food baskets that we were able to give to our families because of the donations of some of you in here. And it's always great to give back to the community. Here was our Thanksgiving dinner. We would love to see everybody here next year. I want to get more of the senior, and I'm almost to that age, but the senior population here. And then you can always tell a middle school girl picture when they put their hands up. Emotionally intelligent, to analyze the impact of my actions and understand others' perspectives. On the right-hand side is the food drive that we do, that Sharon Lawyer coordinates every single year. And what they're doing is they're passing that along the line so that everybody touches that. So really it's about getting other people's perspectives. One of the things that we're constantly trying to have students feel is what does it feel like in those person's shoes, right? So that's what that is. Trustworthy. Each month we do what we call the Bobcat of Excellence, where the teachers are nominating students within their class to be recognized for the hard work that they're doing. And here's a few of the recipients. This is the middle school where I got to stand up straight. This is the little kids. Financially literate. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head for financially literate, but I do think that these guys are going to be financially literate. Dressing up, maybe they're going to be working at Disney. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to get them doing some stuff. But one of the things that this is right here, these two, is during the field days we had at the beginning of the school year. And there's more pictures beyond this one that has them working with the little kids, and they're absolutely gorgeous to see those pictures. Independent decision makers. The middle one, he made an independent decision to dive over that. And, you know, often their last words before they break their arm is, "Watch this, Mr. Briggs," but it's okay. They're all great. So here they're over at the sliding hill. We got some basketball players. We're going to be physically active. It's really fantastic to see. Now, academically speaking, I just want to, if you were here in the fall time when this whole place was lined up because we had our title meeting, we had open house, I talked to you a little bit about the academic data and the things that we were going to do to improve it. And that's what we're talking about. So if you remember, it was 4, 3, 2, 1. 4 exceeding 1 is where it's significantly below. Our goal is always have kids at that 3 and 4 span. We have our MTSS blocks, a multi-tiered system of supports. We give them what they need, and we give them what they need that they might have missed in years before. Because of that, some of our reading data, we've already gone up from last spring to this year, 38% last spring, almost 50% of the school's population is at or above grade level, okay? We've gone, you can see in the twos, 38 to 29 students have gone, they've moved, right? So that's what we really want to see. In mathematics, look at this. They went from 29% in the spring to 55% now in the winter. Huge gains. Are we happy with that? We're happy. Are we satisfied? No. Right? We always want our kids to do more and to get more. But I'm just overly impressed with things like, we had 42 students that were significantly below last spring. Right now, we have 19. That number is huge in that we are moving those kids up. I got to thank lots and lots of people, and I just threw some pictures up here, but this staff has been truly amazing. They are working hard. Every single day they come in here and they meet with each other, they meet with me to figure out what we can do to meet the needs of every single kid. There isn't a day that goes by when I don't walk the halls and I have some teacher talking about what we can do differently to meet those needs. And I just cannot say how I am so deeply impressed with what they have brought this year. It's been a lot of fun to watch. So I know there are some here, so I'd like to just quickly just thank them. So thank you. And I know that you didn't come to hear me, but a couple of things I just want to quickly talk about. In a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, probably 4 weeks, we're going to be having the Cliff Math Night. We were supposed to have it last night. We had to cancel it because of yesterday's weather. What does it mean? It means that we're going to have an author here, we're going to be handing out books, and we're going to be handing out math games. They came in the last few days, all these math games. Please don't make me hold on to a lot of math games. Come, please. My goal is to have 150 of you show up. Here we have the tiny polka dot. I don't know, Lyle. It gets frustrating when you can't read anymore. There they are. All right. 16 easy-to-learn games teaches counting, arithmetic, and logic. Lots of fun. Our kids, your kids, we want these in your hands. The Prime Climb, the beautiful, colorful mathematical game. I can just see you sitting around playing this. Come to that, please. We really want you here, okay? Today, you came for a winter concert. And before I even start that, or give it over to Allie, can you hit it? Can you just go one more slide? Or I got it. Nope, that's not it. There it is. I just wanted to quickly recognize somebody who passed away recently. Dave Baker. He was a gentleman that lived in this community for a very long time, gave 24 years of his life to the Bakersfield School. And he was a 3rd and 4th grade teacher for a while. He was also a principal at the Common School. And for some who don't know where the Common School was, Lyle, which is probably some people in this room, the sliding hill would be where I would say the Common School was, okay? It burned down, doesn't matter, but now we have this beautiful school here. But 24-year educator, he's also the person that created the JP program, the ski program for all of our kids. So, and he was a lover of reading. He was also part of the 40th Army National Guard Band. He loved music. And so it just seemed fitting for me to just today, just to recognize him, he passed away last Wednesday. His birthday was actually on Sunday, I believe, and he would have been 80 years old. So just a quick thank you to Dave and everything that he gave to our community. So thank you, Dave. If you are interested in watching this again, Jasmine from the Northwest, what is it? The Northwest Access is here. It will be on YouTube, will be famous in just 2 short days, it'll go viral, I'm sure. So anyways, without further ado, I'd like to just welcome you all to the winter concert. I'd also like to express a huge thanks to these teachers again for their flexibility, particularly today, because it was crazy as Miss Brown is trying to figure out all of this. And the work that she has done over the last handful of weeks with these students and their growth has just been amazing. So, without further ado, Miss Brown, here you are. Thank you.
All right, welcome. I have actually a couple MCs that are going to be taking over today, announcing everything, helping me out. Miss Kloof is going to turn off most of the lights just to kind of help with the video and help everybody see. And without further ado, I'm going to have them come on up.
Good evening and welcome to our Bakersfield Winter Concert. I'm Alexa.
I'm Allie.
And I'm Michaela. And we'll be your hosts tonight.
Please make sure your cell phones ringer are off. And since we are recording, please stay for the whole concert.
The concert will be about an hour, so please stay for a presentation by our superintendent, Lynn Coda, following the show.
We're so glad you're here to support our musicians. Concessions are available in the lobby. All proceeds go towards our spring musical. This year we'll be putting on Beauty and the Beast. Thank you for your continued support to our drama program.
Once your student has finished performing, they will join you in the audience to watch the rest of our show.
Starting off our concert is the BEMS Middle School Chorus. 5th through 8th grade students have been working hard singing together.
Please enjoy Alphaville's Forever Young, followed by Noah Kahn's Stick Season with Mr. S accompanying us on guitar.
Hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. Are you gonna drop the bomb or not? Get up again.
Yourself a change of heart like halfway through the drive, 'cause your voice trailed off exactly as you passed my exit sign. Kept on driving straight and left our future to the right. I'm stuck between my anger and the blame that I can't face. Memories, something even sleeping in does not replace. And I'm terrified of weather, 'cause I see you when it rains. Doc told me to travel, but there's COVID on the planes, and I love Vermont, but it's the season of the six, and I saw your mom, she forgot that I existed. It's half my fault, but I just like to play the victim. I'll drink something else till my friends come home for Christmas, and I'll dream each night of some version of you that I might not have, but I did not lose. Now your tire tracks and one pair of shoes, and I'm split in half, that'll have to do. So I thought that I found something good and all not bad, that I could cancel out the darkness I inherited from Dad. No, I'm no longer funny, 'cause I miss the way you laugh. You once called me forever, now you still can't call me back. And I love Vermont, but it's the season of the six, and I saw your mom, she forgot that I existed. It's half my fault, but I just like to play the victim. I'll drink something else till my friends come home for Christmas, and I'll dream each night of some version of you that I might not have, but I did not lose. Now your tire tracks and one pair of shoes, and I'm split in half, that'll have to do. Oh, that'll have to do. My other half was you. I hope this pain's just passing through, but I doubt it. And I love Vermont, but it's the season of the six, and I saw your mom, she forgot that I existed. It's half my fault, but I just like to play the victim. I'll drink something else till my friends come home for Christmas, and I'll dream each night of some version of you that I might not have, but I did not lose. Now your tire tracks and one pair of shoes, and I'm split in half, that'll have to do.
They did a great job, didn't they? Give them another round of applause.
Kindergarten, first grade, and second grade will be performing 2 songs. They've been working hard practicing playing along with a beat, using a singing voice and working together.
Please enjoy a plate dance to Elton John's I'm Still Standing with helpers Leah Scar, Alexa Shalafo, and Michaela O'Rourke.
You ready? You ready, Spaghetti?
You can never know what it's like. Your blood like winter freezes just like ice. And there's a cold and lonely light that shines from you. love in a simple way. And if you need to know while I'm still standing, you just fade away. Don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever did? Looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid. And I'm still standing after all this time, picking up the pieces of my life without you on my mind. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. Once I never could have hoped to win, starting down the road leaving me again. The threats you made were meant to cut me down, and if my love was just a circus, you'd be a clown by now. No, I'm still standing better than I ever did, looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid. I'm still standing after all this time, picking up the pieces of my life without you on my mind. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. Still standing better than I ever did, looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid. I'm still standing after all this time, picking up the pieces of my life without you on my mind. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. 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 I'm still standing.
That was amazing.
Third and fourth grade students will now be joining us playing a xylophone and hand chimes to the folk song "You Are My Sunshine," originator wrote by Paul Weiss.
That was so great. You all sounded wonderful. Take another bow.
While K12 leaves the stage, do you want to hear a joke?
Sure do.
What did one hat say to another hat?
What?
You stay here, I'll go ahead.
We want to take a moment to thank the middle schoolers and Miss Nicole for putting up all these fancy decorations on the stage. These snowflakes are beautiful.
Please welcome our 3rd and 4th graders to the stage. They will be singing Catch a Falling Star by Perry Como.
Some starless night.
That was awesome. A lot of words to remember. And that echo sounds so good. Great job singing.
Their last song will be In the Dark. They will be dancing to A Sky Full of Stars by Coldplay.
Get ready for the gym to get really dark. Ready? The lights are turning off in 3, 2, 1.
Next one. There you go. Behind your back. Let's go. Don't talk. Ready?
Whoa, that was so cool. Great job, 3rd and 4th graders. That looked like it was hard to learn. Another round of applause for our 3rd and 4th graders.
Our last part, our last portion of the night is going to be spent with our instrumentalist.
While we transition, please enjoy these two small ensembles. Welcome Ginny and Vesta. We can't wait to hear your duet of the French folk song Frere Jacques.
That was so great. Please enjoy a chorette singing version of the American folk song Shenandoah, sung by Ella Willie, Isaiah Martell, Michaela O'Rourke, Alexis Chalfu, and Ali Mayo. I long to hear you away, you rolling river, oh Shenandoah. I long to hear you away. I'm bound away, cross the wide Missouri. I'm bound to leave you away, a rolling river, oh Shenandoah, I'm not listening away, I'm bound away, cross the wide Missouri. Oh, Shenandoah, I long to hear you away, you rolling river. Oh, Shenandoah, I long to hear you away. I'm bound to
Wow, that was beautiful.
Please welcome our beginner band with our few intermediate band members helping out. These students have been playing their instruments only since October and have made so much progress.
After a quick warm-up, please enjoy an American folk song, Orally, by George Poulton.
That was so impressive. It sounded like there were two really hard parts that you were able to put together. Nice job.
Please welcome the intermediate band to the stage. They will be doing two complicated pieces tonight. The first is a famous rock song, Twist and Shout, arranged by Michael Sweeney, with Wyatt Samuelson on the drum set.
The last song is a complicated but really cool song, Tempest, written by Robert W. Smith. Wow, way to go, Little Media Band. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming tonight and supporting our musicians. What a wonderful showcase of talent and skill and dedication. Please stay for our presentation by Lynn Coda. Thank you for your attention and support. Thank you, and you have a good night.
One last time for Allie Brown. Thank you, Allie. Nice work, Allie.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me, and I'm glad Kevin said that. You're by far our biggest crowd, so go Bakersfield. We're really excited. Even without pizza, that's right. Thank you so much.
They would like you to use the mic.
Okay. All right. A lot of things to hang on to here. What? Okay. I'm going to do my best. Is there any way that it could stand there? Yeah. Perfect. All right, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Lynn Coda. I'm the superintendent for Franklin Northeast. I have been the superintendent for 8 years, but I've worked in Franklin Northeast for 30 years. So I taught in this NMV district. I was an elementary teacher in Montgomery, and then I went on to Berkshire, where I was an instructional coach, assistant principal, and then principal for 11 years, and now here I am. I attended schools here on this side. I attended school in Montgomery, and my whole family has been a part of FNESU. So what happens here is deeply personal to me. All of my children graduated from Franklin Northeast schools, and I have little people now. It's like the greatest thing. I have grandchildren, and one of them is in one of our preschools here in Franklin Northeast. So this work really matters to me. So I want to just acknowledge that we had to divide up today. So our business manager went to Richford tonight. Well, I came here. That does make me a little anxious about the detail questions, because I probably will not be able to answer all of the detail questions tonight. But if you ask me a question and you stump me, as Kevin encouraged you to do, I'm going to have Courtney write down your question and your contact information, and we'll get right back to you with what the answer is. So I'm going to jump right in. So I think we have annual reports somewhere in the room, correct? So our annual report should end up in your mailbox. I'm really hoping by the end of this week, and we have, they're going to circulate around the room in just a few minutes, but I'll point to the celebration page in our annual report. This is an example of celebrations that we pulled that were specific to the Northern Mountain Valley District. So we have two educators that won awards this past fall. So Michelle Plouffe won our Above and Beyond Award for all the work she does to support this Bakersfield community. She's amazing. And we also had the FNESU Elementary Teacher of the Year, Chris Comstock, music teacher from Sheldon, who was recognized. You can see more of the details. We have several students who have roots in our NMV schools that have done some pretty amazing things. And in FNESU in general, we had 4 state championship teams this past year. They had a fantastic year. So I'm going to show you a little, I guess I need to do this. I'm going to show you some data. So one of the things that we are working hard to do is to improve our academic outcomes. Literacy in particular is one of our board priority goals. So we've been working very hard to get all students to proficiency by the end of grade 3, because we know that if all students can read by the end of grade 3, it sets them up for success in all the other areas during their academic career. So I know that this is a lot of color and a lot of lines. Let me just tell you the big idea behind this data. So this represents STAR literacy data for all FNESU students in one cohort. So on the left, for example, there are 2 lines that represents first grade. Next to that, the next 2 lines are second grade, and so on, all the way through 12th grade. So first grade, the data doesn't look great in first grade, let me acknowledge that. What we realized this year was in how we structured the assessment, The students are not necessarily taking the same assessment from fall to winter, and that's what those two lines measure. So how did students do when they entered in the fall? How did they do in January when we reassess them? So in first grade, some of our students are still taking early literacy and some have shifted to STAR. So we have a problem with the procedure for how we're assessing students there that we're going to try to correct for next year. But when you move beyond first grade, what you're hoping to see is that fall first measure, and then the second measure in the winter, you want more green. Green is proficient. Yellow is nearly proficient. Orange is needing intervention, and red is needing targeted intervention. So you can see that we're making some big shifts in terms of students moving into proficiency levels from fall into spring. The second data set represents math data from fall into the spring. So same setup, first grade is on the far left, fall line and then winter line. And then it goes across, you can see many of our, oh, he has a pointer, fantastic. You can see many of the lines we're showing progress from fall into spring, and then our goal ultimately is to see a bigger amount of growth from fall to winter to spring. So Northern Mountain Valley, I know a lot of people don't know. I think last year when I might have been in this gym, someone said, you know that nobody knows what Northern Mountain Valley means, right? Like, it is a little confusing. We have a supervisory union, Franklin Northeast, and 4 schools are merged into one district. And those are our 4 schools. So we have Bakersfield, Berkshire, Montgomery, and Sheldon. We operate pre-K through 8 schools in NMV. And we educate 828 students between all 4 of those schools in this district. So enrollment data, I'll tell you a little bit about our enrollment data. You'll hear a lot if you listen to the narrative at the state level that enrollment is declining across the state, and that is true, but not everywhere. And it is not actually true for us. We are not seeing steep declines in enrollment. We're actually seeing that we're steady or growing, okay? So you can see those trends we've tracked from 5 years back to where we are now. All of this reflects what was our enrollment data on October 1st in any given year. That's the date we have to report to the Agency of Education. Morgan does math projections, and he has projected this out. We're expecting that we will see an enrollment increase over time as we move into 2030. So we're expecting not to have a problem with declining enrollment. This is that enrollment data in another way. So you can see that red reflects Sheldon, green reflects Berkshire, blue is Montgomery, and red is Bakersfield. So most of those lines are trending upwards. Berkshire is the one that is showing more of a flat trend. But overall, we're expecting to continue to see increases in enrollment. So I'm going to move into information about the budget vote. So here on the Northern Mountain Valley side, no one is on the ballot for moderator. So someone could win as a write-in for the moderator position. The duties are somewhat limited for moderator because we would only need a moderator if we had to have a formal district meeting where we were voting on something, and all of our voting really happens by Australian ballot. Emily Fecto, who has been the NMV district clerk, she is also the Berkshire town clerk. She's been this district's clerk since the start, since everyone came together. She is running to continue to be the clerk. There are 3 board seats that are up. One from Montgomery. Michelle Schapp is running for that seat. She is someone who was just appointed by the board to fill a vacancy. Mary Niles is running for her board seat in Montgomery. And Audrey Shea, there's an open seat for Bakersfield. She is running for that Bakersfield seat. Is Audrey here today? Thank you, Audrey. Okay, so last year, the legislature passed a law that requires us to change our ballot language. Zach, it chose not to rerun. Zach Dorman. Yes. Yes. Can you help me for 1 second? I can't get that. So while she's trying to help me with my screen, the legislature passed a law last year that changed what needs to be on our ballot. So we need to report what the percentage increase in spending is from one year into the next. It is not the same as looking at what is your overall budget increase, because this has to, there's another calculation here. It's okay, thank you. It's okay. All right. So the overall budget for the NMV district is $24,293,952. So what that is, it will result overall in a per pupil education spending of $11,718, which is 10.6% higher than the per pupil education spending for this current year. So a higher percentage on that is because our budget is comparatively smaller to other districts in the state. I'm going to go over what drove the increases in this budget, primarily high school tuition, salary, health insurance, other insurance benefits, and then there's a small portion of everything else. Another thing to remember when I talked about that 11,718, that's what your overall spending is, and it's divided by your number of long-term weighted pupils. That's a calculation term that they use in the state of Vermont. So what that really means is that some pupils we recognize cost more to educate than other pupils. So for example, students who live in poverty cost more than students who don't live in poverty to educate. So when COVID happened, the state of Vermont kind of loosened the requirements for families to be eligible for, I always get it wrong if it's Medicare or Medicaid. Medicaid, okay. So they loosened that requirement, so more families qualified for that during the COVID era. That has fallen away. So it's gone back to a more stringent eligibility criteria, so it's harder for families to qualify. So what we've seen in our district is because of the change in how we calculate poverty as a state, we lost 80 students on the other side, and we lost 35 students on this side. So that matters quite a lot when you're calculating out what your per pupil spending is. So I just wanted to point out that change. Thank you, Courtney, that's helpful. Okay, so for the annual meeting, one thing that will be on your ballot is the board is asking if you will approve taking surplus money, $51,176, which is half of the surplus funds from the 23-24 school year, and put that into a capital reserve fund. And that's something that we've been trying to do each year. The board has a history of putting about half of that money into that savings account that we use for capital projects, like for working on the parking lot here, or we have boilers that we're going to be addressing in Berkshire. Sometimes those capital reserve monies are used for those purposes. Is there no money or projects? So Berkshire's boilers are on their last legs. So I was a principal there for 11 years, and when I was there, when I started, they said those boilers are going to need to go, and that's been 19 years. So they're limping along. We went for a long time into the winter with just one boiler, and now yesterday they got that other one going, but we know we need to replace that. So we already have grant funding, which I'm going to talk about, to work on that project, but we'll need to access some of that capital reserve money as well. So some additional considerations, and I'm gonna have to look up here because my computer is just not cooperating with my notes. So some of the major drivers with the budget is an increase in the number of high school students. So because you don't operate a high school, you pay tuition to send students off to high school. This year's graduating class of 8th graders is 82 students. Court, if you could slide just one way or the other. Thank you. It's 82 8th graders, and in terms of graduating seniors, you're graduating 67. So you have fewer students graduating, more students going in, which is more students you have to pay high school tuition for. So overall, secondary tuition is up almost $1 million. So that is both a combination of more students and increased tuitions to all of the schools that we send students to. So an additional cost driver is salaries. So currently this year the board settled with our support staff for this current year. So we have factored that into this budget. That wasn't settled until after last year's budget was approved. And we're currently in negotiations with both teachers and support staff. So we have projected what we think we will need for salaries. So we've put in an increase of almost $595,000. Health insurance premiums across the state are up 12.6%. Increases that are attributed to health insurance are over $250,000. We also have 2 buildings in NMV, Berkshire. Berkshire has 2 classrooms that tested positive for PCBs. Berkshire has not been able to use those classrooms since they tested positive. The state money for PCB remediation has run out. It's possible that throughout this legislative session, more money might be set aside for PCB mitigation, but the reality is if that doesn't happen, that's going to fall onto us. We've gone 2 full school years without having access to those classrooms, so it's possible that if nothing happens in this legislative session that we move forward with mitigating that PCB, and we'll do everything by the book so that if new money comes, we'll be able to get reimbursed at a later date if there's enough money there. But that's another example of what we might use that capital reserve money to help take care of. Yeah. Yes, the second one is Sheldon. So Sheldon has positive PCBs, but not at a level where you have to close any classrooms. So there were positive PCBs at a lower level, but it was in like the little rooms surrounding the gym primarily. So like your, the boiler room, some of the locker rooms, and in order for them to have to shut it down, kids have to be in there a fair amount of time, and kids are not in those spaces enough where we have to shut that down. The level is elevated in the gym, but it's not elevated to the level where that was anything that required immediate action. But we still, because they tested positive, will have to have a plan with or without state aid to mitigate that. So that's a tricky situation for us to be in that we'll have to contend with.
And the reduction in staff, who composes that?
I'm going to show you in just a couple slides. So first I'm going to go to the budget when I talked about all the drivers. So if you can imagine, I took last year's budget amount and I took this year's budget amount and I subtracted to try to find what's the difference between those 2 budgets. That whole circle represents the difference. So you can see that high school tuition alone reflects 49.8% of the overall increase. Teacher and staff salaries, 31.9% of that overall increase. Health insurance premiums, 13.4%. So that's your health insurance that I said was 12.6, but we also saw increases in dental, life, and long-term disability that made up that additional amount. And then other, or any other things that were more this year than last year, which equates to 4.8%. So in terms of the staffing, so there are reductions in staffing 4.4 full-time equivalents. So one of the things that I'm going to talk at the end about some of the things that are happening in the state of Vermont around education funding in the governor's plan. For several years, there have been pressures around budget. Obviously, everybody has lived through that. And one of the things that we have been encouraged to do is staff with precision in our schools. So looking at how many students, how many classes, how many sections are you teaching, how many people are in each group. So we're having to have hard conversations about all of those things. So there were 5 overall paraeducator positions that were reduced in Bakersfield, Berkshire, Montgomery, and Sheldon. Those were not people that were let go. Those were positions that turned over, and we did an audit in each of these buildings to determine what percentage of time do each of those, not percentage, hold on. We looked at all of the students who had any services in their IEPs, and we made sure that our staffing levels were precise with how many hours you needed overall. So we've been able to make those reductions without just doing that through attrition. In terms of professional staff, in this budget, last year we added a STEAM teacher in Sheldon, and that's gone really, really well. They're doing some fantastic things. So the board decided that they wanted to add a STEAM teacher to share between Bakersfield, Berkshire, and Montgomery. So they'll spend part of their year, part of their week in each of those schools. So a STEAM teacher, she's doing all kinds of things from robotics to 3D printing to teaching kids how to code and do all kinds of things with science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics. It's kind of all of those put together. And it's really about, creativity and building some of those skills that are future focused and that they're likely to need in the workforce. Moving on from here. In Sheldon, they had an unfilled help teacher, so they reduced that from the budget. It's something that they haven't had filled, and they added 0.6 of an art teacher in Berkshire to this budget. And that is your overall staffing change. Okay.
It'd be one teacher and she's going to go between, he or she would go between those 3 schools?
Yes. So I don't know how that'll be structured. That'll be up to those 3 principals to decide. So what they could do is spend one marking period in we have trimesters. So they might spend trimester 1 in Bakersfield, the second trimester in Berkshire, the third in Montgomery. I don't know where they will land. It also could be they'll do 1 full day a week in each building and then divide up the other 2. So it'll just depend on what the principals come up with. So, what? Yes.
So there's lots of talks, is it Terry? There's lots of talks. One is that we just go trimester, right? So trimester, just because of the consistency. So that's one of the options, and honestly, that's where I'm leaning. So I'd like to look at that. And then also build capacity with our art teacher and because we have some robotic, or not robotic, what we do? We have some makerspace, we have the 3D printers, and it'd be great to get somebody here to not only teach us how, or teach the students, but also teach us how to continue doing that, right? So, yeah, that was kind of the thought.
Some of the things that we're seeing in other schools is they're making classroom connections. So they're working on something in their literacy class, and then they're going into STEAM or into their tech class with some of their librarians, and they're actually 3D printing things connected to the books that they're reading. So there are all kinds of fantastic things happening related to that. So this part gets a little more complicated. We're going to talk about the numbers. Again, I'm going to channel my Morgan Daybell because he's the one that is so good at talking about all of this. So what this is really getting at is what's the equalized tax rate? Now, I want to start by saying this is another example of how the legislature changed how we're measuring these things last year. So this page doesn't look great, and it has to do with where that common level of appraisal is applied. So this essentially is the amount we spend on students divided by the dollar yield, which is one of the factors in the formula, and that's going to equal the tax rate. We control what we spend, The number of students kind of is what it is. We know we lost 35 because of those, the way they changed the poverty levels, but that ultimately is going to equal your district tax rate. And that's where it's the same for all of you. It's before your local CLAs are applied. So the large drop in the predicted yield, which brings the localized tax rate up, is due to the change in the CLA calculation at the state. So this change causes our local CLAs to go up, which then brings the local tax rates back down to level or slight increases. So because the CLA moves differently in each of our towns, the tax rates are different. So when you go to this slide, you can see that everybody starts with that equalized tax rate, and then once you divide it by your CLA in each of your communities, so here in Bakersfield, you're going to take the residential tax rate, equalized residential tax rate, divide it by Bakersfield CLA, and that's going to bring you to flat tax rate. So overall this year, what we're expecting in Bakersfield is that your taxes will go up 0.0017 of a penny. In Berkshire, it is a little different. Berkshire, they had a less steep increase to their CLA. So they are going to see a 10-cent increase in Bakersfield. In Montgomery, their increase was even less, so they're going to see a 16.4% cent increase, not percent, cent increase. And in Sheldon, like Bakersfield, it's relatively flat. It's difficult to comprehend, right? We all have the same equalized district tax rate, and then they look at your CLA and say, okay, what's causing this to happen has to do with your property values. I'm going to explain that in the next slide. So you can see here, this is projecting out. Red is Bakersfield, blue is Berkshire, black is Montgomery, and green is Sheldon. So you can see FY26 is where we're expecting to go with those tax rates. So Berkshire and Montgomery are seeing a steeper increase this year, and this has to do with the fluctuations in their property values. So go to the next slide. So if the CLAs were the same in each town, everybody landed with the same CLA, you would all have the same tax rate. But what this reflects is that property values in some towns are growing faster than in other towns. So in Sheldon and Bakersfield, in 2025, houses in those towns were selling more than what their assessed value was, more so than they were in Montgomery and in Berkshire. So essentially this year has flipped. So we're seeing a bigger difference. Houses are selling for more than their assessed values at a higher level in Berkshire and Montgomery. So you can see on this kind of explains it. If you look at each of the communities, if your property, let's just look at the 100,000 column. So in Bakersfield, because of where your CLA is, if your property value on your tax bill is 100,000, what the state is saying that your fair market value is actually 105,000. If you're in Berkshire and your property value on your tax bill is 100,000, the state's saying houses are selling for more in Berkshire, so your assessed value should be 107.9. If you're in Montgomery, your property tax bill, $100,000 home, the fair market value is really $113,000. So the state's going to get more money out of those towns because they think that your property values are worth more because of how they're selling in the market. In Sheldon, a $100,000 home, the state thinks is worth closer to $104,000. Does that make sense? I almost hate to ask that question because it's just so complicated. What's that? It's understandable.
Was that like an indication in any way when you were looking at the rise of student population to school, the income level or the poverty level also kind of following that same trajectory of people who are moving in?
So let me just see if I'm understanding. So I think what you're wondering is if there's a connection to growing poverty levels in each of those communities that might match the real estate piece. That's a great question that I don't actually know the answer to. And I'd have to think about how I could figure it out. I'm gonna have Courtney capture it, and we're gonna get back to you on that. I heard something over here. That's a really hard question. And then the last 2 slides, I'm going to explain why it's super hard to answer, because I don't actually know what's going to happen after this year. And I'm going to explain that piece, okay? But let's say nothing changes. Yes, it would impact that. You still won't feel like you're not paying enough property taxes, though, because it's going to lower your property tax rate, but it's going to increase your property value. So it's going to come out in the end. So I want to talk about this slide a little bit. So we take a look at all the districts across the state of Vermont. So you see this, I lost the pointer. Let me get the pointer. There's too many things to hold on to today. That button, there we go. So all of these green lines here represent every district in the state of Vermont and what they spend per pupil. That's that per weighted pupil amount that we talked about. So the bottom of this is somewhere around $8,000 per pupil, and the top, way up there, is somewhere around, I think 18, okay? Pretty big difference between what the lowest spending systems and the highest spending systems are spending per pupil. So, any guess where we are? We're down here. So this right here is Enosburg and Richford. So their per pupil spending is $10,253 per weighted pupil. They're 6th lowest in the state. And here's what's interesting about this. These first 4 lines, they don't even operate schools. Okay? So Enosburg and Richford are the 2nd lowest in terms of operating districts. They're the 2nd lowest in the state. So that means NMV, the second black line, is the 9th lowest operating district in the state. So you're spending, this current year we're in, not next year, $10,591 per weighted pupil. The red lines reflect our partners in Franklin County, all of the other school systems in Franklin County. This first black line represents the Franklin County average for per pupil spending, and that second black line here represents the statewide average of per pupil spending. Yes. I think I'm making funny noises. Okay. Yes, it includes all of those students. So this just, that visual on the right is just really like the bottom 20 blown up so that you can see that. So we have to be Jess?
Is it fair to say that the reason it costs less to educate students in this district is because of how little we pay teachers?
I think there are a lot of factors. I think that certainly teacher pay is one of those factors, and that's something that I've certainly been advocating for and our boards have been working towards for many years. There's a discrepancy. There are several systems in the state that are having the same battles we are in terms of compensation. I think there are other factors too in terms of what we can offer our students. So I think that some of the things that students can do in other systems in the state, those aren't opportunities that we're able to provide because we can't build in that level of spending into our budgets and get it approved by our voters. So there's a problem because Vermont's Constitution requires that we offer substantially equal educational opportunities for our students, and it shouldn't matter where they live. But when you look at a spread from here to here, it's not really true. It's not really what we're doing. So our students, who I would argue are have been economically disadvantaged by this funding system for a really long time. And our students have significant needs. We serve a lot of students who live in poverty, and it's not a number that I'm super proud of. Like, I wish we were able to spend more per pupil and offer more opportunities for our students, because they definitely have high levels of need. So we try to get really creative and look for other ways to fund opportunities. So people in my office are often looking for how can we support within the schools, and these are a few things I pulled out of the overall report that are just specific for this NMV side, or they include the NMV side. So we have a facilities director that we hired a few years ago, and he was able to get $111,775 to replace all the lights in all of our schools, except there was one school we were not able to do with that grant. And I think it had to do with, I'm not actually sure what that had to do with, but we did all but one. And there's long-term cost savings because we've now shifted all of them to LED, and we got a great grant to be able to do that. Another grant that we've received is the 21st Century Learning Grant. That's almost $600,000. And we were just awarded that this past year. We've received this several times now, and Heather Mora, after school program coordinator, is also a fantastic grant writer. We actually didn't have to reapply for the grant this year. We were the only district in the state that was just given the grant to move forward because we scored so highly on their assessment. So we're very proud of that. We also have, that pays for all of our after-school programs and summer programs. We got a grant, this red box, these things came in right before we went to print. Heather also received $232,000 to go towards after school and summer. This is really great news for Bakersfield because Bakersfield was on a different grant cycle, and we were worried about summer and how we're going to fund summer because that money went away. So this additional funding is going to help us to fund Bakersfield for summer, and that's a 42-month grant. We're very excited about that. So that boiler that I talked about in Berkshire, that needs to be replaced this summer. We have already received $200,000 for that. There's a grant towards that, and when we did that in Richford, we received $600,000 and then ended up getting another 60 on top of that. So in Richford, their pellet boiler project that was just finished, I got a letter yesterday that said the estimated savings are $66,000 a year and $1.3 million over 20 years. So we were able to use that grant funding and some of the capital construction to be able to take care of that project, and we're hoping to do the same thing in Berkshire. In terms of, next slide, Courtney. I'm sorry, I did miss something there. That's where you're holding on for me. So when COVID happened, the federal government gave us ESSER money. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of ESSER money, but it was COVID relief aid that went to schools. And we set aside quite a large portion of that to be able to make highly engaging material investments. And in all of our buildings across the entire supervisory union, we played a big role in improving library spaces, trying to turn those into more updated spaces where kids could go, work collaboratively with others. They could create, they could collaborate. You'll see makerspace materials in those spaces. You'll see 3D printers, all kinds of technology tools that we're able to fund through that federal grant. So those are opportunities that we don't usually have. So it was very exciting for us. Okay, so this is a new article. So because NMV is a tuitioning district, there are times when you have a big swing. You have a small senior class graduating and a really large 8th grade class coming in. So that can have a big impact on your tax rates. So what the board is asking for is permission to start a tuition reserve fund. So you know how we're asking you this year to put money towards capital reserve. If you approve this, if there is reserve next year, the board would ask you to put money either towards a capital reserve fund or into this tuition reserve fund, or both. But that would mean when you have those big swings in the year, instead of that hitting you with your tax rate, we could say, we've got 20 tuition students more this year than what we had last year. We're going to take some of this to essentially buy down your tax rate. Does that make sense? Okay.
That makes sense, but it doesn't make sense that we have such a huge reserve. Like, why are we having so much money left over? Like, when we vote on these budgets, it seems like we're being told that this is like the bare bone.
Yeah.
And then here we had over 100,000 left. Is that-
A lot of that staff. We've had a really hard time filling positions, so sometimes when people leave, we're not able to fill those positions. So we build those budgets 18 months before you're actually in that school year. So we project out, this is the staffing level we need. But then when you get to the school year, maybe you have fewer students and you don't need to fill that position, or you might have a position. I've had one position in one building that's been open for 3 years and we haven't been able to fill it. So a lot of that reserve goes towards that, yeah. Okay, I'm going to talk about the governor's proposal, but just briefly. I'll stay for questions if you want it. So if you're listening to the news, you are hearing that there are a lot of things happening in Montpelier with the legislature this year. So all of you know that last year, I think it was 33 school budgets were defeated in Vermont, including both of ours, in that first round at town meeting day last year. And you heard a lot of people around the state saying, we demand reform. We want a more affordable education system. So people wanted their voices heard in Montpelier. Voices have been heard in Montpelier. And the governor has made a proposal to fundamentally restructure the entire education system in Vermont. So this part on the left is what the public school landscape currently looks like in Vermont. So we have 52 supervisory unions or supervisory districts, 119 smaller districts, 287 schools, and 83,733 publicly funded students. So in the governor's model, and again, this isn't anything that's been approved, this is what he has proposed to the legislature to continue. He would take all of those 52 districts and he would turn that into 5 districts. So essentially, we would be in this dark green right here. This line represents the Champlain Valley region currently. So that represents is Richford to Shoreham. It would cover 4 counties. There would be 15,000, is it 50? 35,000 students in that district. So there would be the Champlain Valley region, there would be the Northeast region, the Winooski Valley region, the Southwest region, and the Southeast region. Most of the other regions are about 1/3 of the size of that Champlain Valley district. So what that would mean is that you would have one superintendent for each of those 5 districts and one district office, and they would, one board for all of those districts, and they would be making all of the decisions for all of the students in the entirety of those regions. So this model was selected. They chose the 5 regions because they represent the Vermont Superintendents Association regions. So what I've heard them say is that it was an existing structure. So that's what we use. So it actually, I just want to say, it doesn't really represent anything for us as superintendents other than I go every month to a Champlain Valley superintendent meeting, and those borders tell me which meeting I have to go to. So that's what those regions originally were built to do, is to decide which superintendent goes to which region. So in his proposal, there's a timeline, and it is pretty quick timeline. So we are in the 24-25 school year, so our legislature they're really busy in Montpelier, and they're considering the governor's proposal. I think that there's definitely, I see across Senate and House, And we see it from the governor and the Agency of Education, an interest in making big reform in schools. So the reform includes, I didn't say all of it, it includes the districts. It also includes the number of schools that we operate, and it also includes how we fund education. So right now you vote on an amount of money, and then we tell the state what you approved, and then the state has to generate enough revenue to pay us that amount of money. This would change it so that we would have a foundation formula. I believe the number is $13,400 per pupil, and there would be some additional money for weights, but it would just be predetermined. That's the amount of money that you're going to receive. There would be some additional categorical aid, but it would be functionally very different. You would not be voting on a budget unless that big district said, hey, we want more than that, and that's something that they're contemplating right now. So again, none of this has passed. It is just, this is the idea right now. So they're all working hard to figure out, what are we going to pass? I will tell you that for what it's worth, my opinion is I don't think we're going to land on 5 districts. I think we'll land with a different model. I think that funding formula is going to change, and I think that that funding formula will create the conditions that we will not be able to operate very small schools in Vermont. And I know in Vermont, last year I did some data digging. There's about 75 schools with under 100 students. So there will be big decisions made about that. So
46, deja vu all over again.
This is much, much bigger than that.
Except that it was an attempt to do something big and never did.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure where they're going to land. I think their intention is, that was about district consolidation. This is more. This is about how you fund, and this is about the number of, they're calling it your school portfolio, so how many schools you operate throughout the state. So this year it's about seeing what can go through in Montpelier. Next year, the governor has promised $77 million to try to hold property taxes for this year. So I just gave you numbers tonight that, you know, the yield will be set at the end of the legislative session, and we'll know where, if those numbers were, it's always a projection because the yield doesn't get set until the end. But it may be that you see more relief than what we projected because of that infusion of money that the governor has suggested. So essentially, in 26, 27, a new board would be elected, and that would be, they're going to have to determine how they would create the conditions, like, is it a representative board? They have a lot of work to do there. And then by July 1 of 2027, they'd be operating under the governor's proposal. So anything that had to do with FNESU or any other supervisory union or district in the state would no longer exist, and everything would operate under that new larger district. And then in 28, 29 is when they start digging in. Sorry, let me back up. 27, 28 would be the first year that I believe it would be full foundation formula. And then 28, 29 is when they're suggesting that they would rescale the school portfolios. So I will say I'm paying a lot of attention to what's happening in Montpelier. I'm also hearing them saying, we're not going to close schools, meaning the agency. But what I suspect is they're going to create the conditions through the standards that they set for school, the spending, the funding, that districts are going to have to make some tough decisions. So they know that it will result in fewer schools. So whether it's them doing it or the new district boards doing it, that remains to be seen.
Was it one of the goals to increase class size to 20 to 24 students, but it was also, I mean, I would, just our district, you'd probably cut half of the schools to make that number.
Yeah, scale is a big part of it, and that's something that we've been working on. It's difficult in some of the smaller schools, but that's connected to the staffing with precision piece. So we're getting all kinds of things through there. That really falls under what's called the education quality standards that have like the class size expectations, and there are some things established around district quality standards, and some of the things connected to the governor's proposal have to do with ratios. So if you have 600 students under the new funding formula, you might get one school counselor, or you might get one principal, one assistant principal. Or if you have 500 students for an elementary school, it tells you how many interventionists and so on and so forth. So it's a little more prescribed than what we're used to, but the intention is to drive the money down, that's the ratio part, and then increase the number of students that are in seats in those classes. Because that's something that they've been saying to us for a long time, is that there are too few students we have too many classes. So those are both drivers.
So what would happen if Act 46 got disabled by voters and put back their own schools and to back control?
So there's nothing in what they're talking about that's going to be optional with whatever plan that they come up with. In Act 46, this is the way I understand it now in their proposals. In Act 46, they encouraged communities to do it on their own. And then they left a loophole where some communities were able to, like Lincoln, for example, leave where they were and go out on their own. That's the opposite direction of where they want to go. They want fewer, they don't want more. So the state board would have to approve that, and I don't think that's not going to happen in this, because they actually think that we're too small together. So they want to make us bigger by joining us with others.
Lynn, would you foresee this proposal would balance out teacher salaries? Because it's always been a problem with Chittenden County with higher salaries, and it draws teachers from here there. So would you foresee that this proposal would balance that out?
They do talk about that here. And when I first heard it, I thought, thank goodness, I've been waiting my whole life to be able to see a statewide teacher's contract. I think that would be hugely beneficial for our schools in our region, because we could compete and people would want to stay. So that part would be fantastic. They're not saying that as clearly right now. They're saying more regionally competitive. So what my wonder is, and again, this is just a proposal, there's no bill yet. So there's no details for us to dissect. We're all waiting for the details. But what I'm wondering, if you could go back one slide, is in the 5, if they're going to expect that the boards in each of those 5 regions negotiate a contract. So it would have to be the same within each of those 5. I think that's what they're pointing to right now.
Our region still covers Chittenden County, so we benefit from that.
You would, if we land with 5.
Yeah, taxes all.
Yeah.
Would it also help to maybe distribute the personnel? I know that I had a conversation this afternoon about how hard it has been to get SLPs in this area, and hearing from an early ed administrator in the district the fact that preschools have one for each preschool in their community, and we're all just kind of looking at each other thinking, that's equity, like really? And you know, there are 6 preschoolers and we're divided the way we are. Would that lend itself to, there was a limit to how much, like how many interventionists, how many special educators in an area, and if you want to stay in the district, you would need to be at one of the other schools?
I think it should, because everybody under this plan should be playing by the same rules in terms of the staffing ratios. So are there many districts that are going to have to come way down on spending unless they leave a loophole to add, to have voter approval to add?
From what you know already, are you concerned about any of our schools being below a level that would be sustainable? Do you think there's danger of any in our district?
I'll just be frank with you. I'm worried about a lot of things. I do not think that we would have the same number of schools at the end of this, because they're talking about scale and they're talking about elementary schools with between 300 to 500. That isn't finalized yet. They have a PICUS report that they're all, that they commissioned last year, and the 300 to 500 for the elementary schools is the recommended model. And I want to say 600 for high schools. So we aren't going to be able to create their conditions for the class sizes and the teacher ratios under the current structure.
This is way different than Act 46 that we were looking at schools with 60 kids or 40 kids or something. This is a whole other level.
It is a whole other level.
Consolidation.
Yeah. But again, nothing's final, so we don't know where it's going to land. But I thought it was important for you as taxpayers to know that this is going on, so you should pay attention, talk to your legislators. Again, there's no bill to respond to yet, so the legislators are doing work to kind of try to imagine where we're going, but they don't have the details yet. Any other questions?
So Lynn, these were informational, informal meetings. There is still a formal school board meeting on February 25th?
It's still an informational meeting, but that is the district, that's the real one. We have to have one for each district within 10 days of when you vote on town meeting day. So I'll let Courtney say, it's in Montgomery.
It's in Montgomery on the 25th, you are correct.
On the
And
25th.
electing a moderator and a clerk?
That's on your ballot.
Yeah, it changed to Australian ballot this
So
year.
is there any reason other than to get information?
Right, so no, that's changed. So there's no actual formal meeting that happens. It's an informational. So the moderator will get elected on the ballot, not at that meeting. Any other questions?
The grants that you talked about, are you concerned with the federal cuts hitting those grants?
I didn't talk about that. I meant to talk about that. So, tell you a little bit about my vantage point right now. Okay, his question is, am I concerned about federal funding right now and the grants that we currently receive? So, it's a little challenging to keep up with the day-to-day right now in my role because I'm trying to monitor all of this that's happening at the state, but at the same time, there are a lot of things happening at the federal level. I'm very concerned about the stability of our federal grant funding. And as such, there were decisions that are made in some of our buildings about how we fund interventionists mostly across the supervisory union. So some of those were built into the local budget. I don't think we have that on this side because that wasn't reflected on there. Definitely on the other side where they moved some of those positions into the local budget and they're paid for different things out of the federal grants just so that we're not running the risk of having to lose those positions. So trying to be really strategic there. We cut off, I don't think we're going to lose all of our federal grant money. That's my prediction. I do think we'll see a cut in federal grants. So we've got a couple of open positions that we won't fill. We've moved some people out, so we have an amount of money at the bottom that we were projected to spend. So we're hoping between the openings and that we will have enough space to weather the storm without having to reduce positions. But it is definitely a scary time.
How about reconstruction?
Right.
Like, there are some positions that we pay good money, does not educate a student. Have we thought about maybe getting rid of some of those?
So in terms of the SU budget, so what positions in particular are you talking about?
Well, I don't think we need a person to oversee our janitors. I think that is a position that could go. We have very senior janitors mostly in our districts, in our schools. You can't tell me that one of those guys or ladies could not take that duty on. Mass supply, getting that, it seems like that's what the big thing is. They do a mass supply so that they get the better rate on anything they purchase. Like, why can't somebody else take that on?
So I'm going to tell you why we shifted to that position, and then you're welcome to have your opinion on whether it was the right idea or not. So when I was a principal, I had to know a lot about our water system because I did not have a facility director. I had a head custodian, So there were a lot of things that I had to know. When we were putting in new equipment or we were dealing with the water system, my hands had to be in that. And I didn't have any business being in that. That was not my area of expertise. So there were mistakes made over the years with different administrators trying to do the best they can. The facilities director manages all the construction projects, any facilities upgrades that we have. He's working on a master plan to try to take care of things. These are all things that otherwise would have landed on the principal's plate. And since we've hired him, I believe this is the 3rd year, he has drawn in over $1 million in grant funding to the district to be able to do some of those projects. So he's more than paying his salary and what he's drawing in. He's also helping us to manage PCBs, which are kind of awful right now in dealing with that, because you're navigating, there are lawsuits around that, so he's navigating all of those pieces as well. So I would love to sit down and talk to you about some of the other positions and why we have some of those. That whole idea that I talked about earlier about staffing with precision, that's something we've been working on for a long time. So we have instructional coaches that we hire out of our office, but then we deploy out to the schools. Because we know if we said we want an instructional coach for each of our buildings, one, we wouldn't be able to hire them, and you don't really need a full one in each building. So we have 3, and we push them out to our 9 schools so we can staff more precisely by holding the contract there. We also have positions like the emerging multilingual teachers who work with our students who English is not their first language. And if we were to hire at the district level, those are really, students sometimes move from one school to another, so it's not really stable, but we have it at our level so we could deploy out parts of positions. And some of this new modeling, we're actually way under what some of the recommendations are for what you should have in terms of operating at a district functional level. I haven't unpacked all of that, but we're trying to compare. In the new model, we would have 9 instructional coaches, and we have 3. So there are some of the functions that we have now that we have not had historically when you run schools, because some of the things that we're expected to do are different. So I think it's just... What part?
If the governor's plan comes into play, we will have all of that.
Well, for us, to be honest with you, if that came into play, it might be more. I'm not saying it will because there's no details, but we're at 10,000 something, and the foundation formula is at 13.4, because they're not going to bring everybody in the state down to us. They've got to be somewhere in the middle. So it's possible, but when I say us will not represent FNESU anymore, right? It's a different district. But the opportunity piece, it's possible that could be better. But I'll reserve that judgment until I get the details.
Try to wrap my mind around this thing here, and for this to happen, like we're talking all new facilities all through the state, right? We need 1 high school in Enosburg, Richford. We need like 2 elementary schools or whatever it is. Those are new buildings.
I don't think they're talking about all new buildings. They're
How do you get up to 500 students in an elementary school without building a new building somewhere?
If it's 300 to 500. So it's possible that in parts of the state you'll have to add, but you might have other buildings that have larger schools in them that are now empty, right? Like that's going to be big work for them to figure that out.
I mean, it's huge for us. We don't have any building that would hold that many students.
You have Sheldon. Sheldon's pretty big.
But they have a lot of students.
Yeah.
I mean, like bringing in students.
There's also like this could be all the kindergartners.
Right.
Like you could sort it out like this building was K1 for every, and so I agree with you 100%. But there's also they could file it however they want.
You're exactly right on.
I hope they take into consideration busing.
Yeah.
What's that?
What did I
say, I said that the other day.
Busing. How long children sit on a school bus.
So one thing that I know for sure, I will not be one of the 5. I have no interest in being one of the 5. That transportation thing, they're not suggesting that you're going to be transporting kids through that whole area, but you would have different transportation patterns. It's hard enough to figure out a transportation pattern for Franklin Northeast on a larger scale. One thing I didn't say, and I just want to acknowledge, there are a lot of questions. I was trying to like take my time from last time. I'm way over, I'm sorry. And I appreciate all the questions. This is great. And I should have answered the question first because I just lost it. The busing. The last time we took a look at the busing, it was a nightmare. There was another piece. It's going to come back to me. That's what happens these days.
There was something you didn't say.
But,
There was something you didn't.
oh yes, it came back. Thank you, Courtney. The board members are not, I just want to acknowledge Arlene. She's essentially a volunteer. I want to thank Arlene for being our Bakersfield School Winter. It probably costs her money. It probably costs her money over the course of the year with what she spends going back and forth to meetings. They're essentially volunteers. In this new plan, they would be quasi-professional positions, so there'd be salary attached to those board members. I'm happy to stay if anyone has any other questions.
Then you keep talking about this staffing with the precision model. Does that also apply to like central office and all these? I think kind of going along with what Terry was saying. I mean, the divergence in salaries between central office and just your basic teacher, is ridiculous. And yet, here we are cutting positions because we need to quote unquote be precise with how we manage educating our children. And yet, going back to I think what Paul said too, salaries in this district. I mean, I'm looking, I worked down in Colchester, your average social, your superintendent's making $120,000, $130,000 a year. Does that apply to the extraneous staff?
I don't know where they're going in with the salary piece. I can't speak to that, but it does apply in terms of the ratios. But the only thing that we can do right now is to take what are they saying. They did a model. I think that it was based on 4,000 students. So I asked the business manager to take that model for a central office at 4,000 and run it against ours, which is around, it might have been 3,750. And I asked him to run it against ours to see like where are we in terms of our ratios for our positions. So that's something that we're looking at also. And as I told Terry, we know already there are some areas that we're actually way under. So not that we're adding, not saying that, but. Okay, I'm happy to stay if anybody has any lingering questions, but thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.